Alright, my poem is Despair by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It is obviously about a man trapped in despair. This man is never named, and not much is told about himself other than of his despair. Eventually, this man meets a woman and falls in love, and starts to see the bright side of life. He thinks that with her he can overcome anything, and keep a truce with despair to stay away. However, she passes away, and he falls victim to despair once more, at which time he decides to break his ties with despair. After this, the poem ends, so the end is open to interpretation as well as to deciding yourself what he finally does to break these ties with despair. Alright, this poem is narrated in a first-person point of view, where the narrator himself is experiencing all the events that he explains. The presiding theme is obviously despair, and dealing with it or the effects of it. However, there's an underlying theme of the character evolving and becoming a better person through the experiences he goes through, the good and the bad. This poem doesn't use much figure of language nor imagery, as it is rather relying on a feeling of despair coming from this man. There isn't any rhyming or any sound devices such as alliterations or onomatopoeias. Other than a few words such as discontents or disrent, the vocabulary of the poem is very basic, using words most everyone knows. However, they are used in a very vague way that allows people to have their own interpretation of them. There is only 16 lines in the poem, giving it a very short and sweet feel, but the time gaps in the poem make it feel longer than it truly is. The narrator seems very nostalgic about despair, as though he's looking back on life thinking of all the things that have happened to him. To go a little bit deeper, first the poem begins with the character telling about how he's been through the worst of things, horrible things that have always happened to him. He's watched it all happen, which is shown by the words, "The worst the world can wreck on me." This means that everything the world has thrown at him, he has taken it. As a result of witnessing this, he has been cast into the pit of despair. After this, he continues explaining how life itself does not care, but simply does whatever it pleases to whomever it pleases. This is supported by the words life and different. An important thing in this is that the L in life is capitalized as if it is a name. This man seems to believe that life itself is active, and that actions people say may be left up to chance are not truly chance, but the happenings of this life. Then he goes to tell about the people he has seen die, and the last words that they have said, which were sad remnants of things they had wanted to say. This is shown by the words whispered discontents. Discontents is used here as an opinion of regret that people voice, or things they wish they could have done over. The whispered part of this quote is supposed to represent that they are on their deathbed, barely able to speak before passing away. All this he claims that he watched with no interest life. This is shown by the words, "I have beheld the whole of all." This indicates that at this point in his life he has already fallen to despair, while he watched those that he knew die. This also gives a little insight into the fact that he is telling this part of the story from a place in the future, where he is looking back and telling of what he has done and experienced. Next, the man begins to claim that he was devoid of any hope and ambition. The things he had wanted to do when he was young had vanished, and he was simply left with his small day-to-day life. The words, "from off my hopes," support this. Another important thing about this quote as well is that hopes is capitalized. So this shows that it holds importance to him, because here it could either be a dead romance that he's lost, or it could be something which he was chasing all his life, holding importance to him until he finally had to give it up. There's another little time pass, and he continues into his despair, at which point he turns to the prospect of suicide. He has lost everything he wanted and had, and as a result he now doubts his reason to live. He is desperate to find something, and begins to feel as though suicide is the only way to ease his pain. These points are showed when he states, "Nothing now is left," and "live on." There's a question mark after the words "live on," indicating that his will to live is questionable, and he is pondering if suicide truly is the only way out. At this point there is another skip through the time, and Storian begins to look up to a brighter path. He finds someone, which to him was held hostage by the world, and is everything he has been searching for in his life. He believes that he has freed her and that everything will begin looking up. This is supported by the text, "that hostage which the world had in its keeping." Two important things in this sentence are the words that hostage are capitalized, meaning it's a person whom he has found and not a thing, and he believes that this person will help him. The other important thing is that the word world is not capitalized, meaning or indicating that this is no particular person who is withholding this from him, but rather everything in the world as a whole. A shortcut to the future indicates that he marries the girl which he had found, which is supported by the words "given to me as a pledge." Obviously this pledge is his marriage vows. This comes to the understanding that he has pledged his life to her, and is willing to live it with her. The words "I would live" indicate this change as well, as the fact that he begins to see the meaning in life, and that he has cast aside his despair in place of his devotion for this girl. At this point things begin to seem happy, and indicate his love for the girl as well as how he longs to always be with her. He believes that at this point his life will forever be better, and that his faith in her will never yield, as he relies upon her to keep him happy. His words, "that pure faith," indicate his undying love for her, This also indicates the fact that he trusts her completely and has faith in their relationship, meaning that it's a two-sided love, and not just a situation where he loves her and she does not return his feelings. Faith as well is important, because it's emphasizing on his love and faith through their relationship. Following this come the words, which help me to keep a truce with the tyranny of life. Tyranny of life in this sentence is now how he comes to view despair, as the bane of all things that are good in his life. This quote allows the man to come to the realization that through his love he has overcome the despair which was caused in his life, and he now sees the brighter side of things rather than witnessing only the bad. Promptly after this line, the story's brightness gets abruptly cut off. This is shown by 3 words, is gone, ah. This indicates that something has been done to break his truce with despair, causing it to flood into his life. He is shocked over this, after his belief in love is shaken so badly by his truce being broken, which is shown by the exclamation point at the end of the word ah. He then ponders over why despair would make this move, and constantly come for him. This is displayed when he questions, what boots it to reply? At this point he is completely at a loss, wondering why despair would do this, even though they'd already established a truce. The surprise and devastation in these last few lines lead me to believe that something happened to his wife. This love of his that he had for her was abruptly cut off in some way that he has once again lost his point in life, and begins to question despair itself. After this, it seems to cut to a present time, where he finally comes to his decision of what to do. The words, well, I may break this pact, shows that he has finally decided that he will cut ties with desperation, in an attempt to leave it behind. He believes that this is the only step he can take to aid himself in this time of need. He thinks that he will be free from despair as long as he can take a next step that depends all upon himself. The next line, that ties me to myself, display the fact that he realizes he has been fighting against himself in this fight for despair. Then the part of him that wishes to evolve and become something other than what he's been stuck as, pitted against his past self, who is haunted by his life experiences. His final words, and break I shall. This leaves us with the last realization that he has finally decided to take action, and he will be doing it soon. However, this is the last line, and no explanation is left as to the action that he finally decides on, so it is open to discretion on the actions he will take. 3 main things that I gathered and thought that he might do, that he would simply cast off the side of him that has always despaired. Another is that he will not be able to overcome his despair, as much as he tries, and will be left to live yet in despair for the rest of his life. The last one returns to the middle of the story, in which he believes suicide is the only answer, which means the last option I think of is that he's simply going to kill himself in the end. So that's basically my analysis of this poem. So yeah, you guys have a good night.